Richard Edwards and Professor Ronjon Nag, the Executive Directors of CapAI. Well, thank you both for joining us today. Richard, first of all, welcome. First time we're speaking. How are you?
Yes, fine, thank you. Thanks very much for having us on.
It's good to be talking to you. And of course, Ronjon, we did speak before. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. It's great to be here again.
Good. No, very pleased to be talking to you both. So I know you had the AGM yesterday, where I believe quite a few shareholders were in attendance and lots of questions. So that's obviously very good. But really, the key bit of news that's come out this week is the strategic alliance, of course, with R42, which is what we talked about with Professor Ronjon on the last interview. But Richard, if I can ask you first about this alliance with R42, how will it create value for the CapAI shareholders?
Yes, we probably best to go back to the previous RNS, which was in mid-April, which announced our refined operating strategy. What we're looking to do is to pioneer a new model of AI startups and project development companies. So the announcement of the alliance with R42 on Tuesday was a sort of a logical step forward on that. It's a related party transaction. So Ronjon was acting on behalf of R42. Myself and my co-directors, excluding Ronjon, were negotiating the alliance agreement on behalf of CapAI. But having said that, Ronjon's obviously the founder and manager of R42 and also an executive director of CapAI. So there's a real strong will there to work together. We're looking at a number of particular projects of interest, which is probably something for Ronjon to comment on further.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm very pleased that this has now been formalized because, of course, when we spoke to Ronjon before, it was sort of, it hadn't quite formally happened yet, but it was nice to see what was coming down the path. So, Ronjon, let's just have a look, because I know we spoke before and there's lots of different use cases for R42 and the AI platforms and things that you're developing. And I know you wanted a listed vehicle to really help accelerate that growth, but you've really focused on, I think, 4 that was announced. So you've got the AI-driven platform for book-to-movie and book-to-game adaptations. You've got a media creator for multi-format content, so books, screenplays, and audio. We did speak about the anti-aging vaccine research that we talked about last time, so that's part of this suite as well. And finally, you've got you've got a suite of other projects, I think, that are coming down the pipeline. So just talk us through those 3 projects. I know we've got a demo to go through on the book to sort of the writing the book concept, but just take us through those key ones that you focused on and perhaps why you focus on those ones for CapAI.
Yeah, so R42 is a very prolific invention house, and the macro thesis is really mathematics and medicine, media and medicine, the macro thesis. And so both are tough tech, both are very difficult to do. And so that's where we think the markets are big. And there's a lot of talk about how to really revolutionize software creation, media creation, and the discovery of new treatments so we can all live longer. And so the 3 things we were looking at is it possible to go straight from a book to a game? No, so obviously it'd be a fiction book. Can you actually go to a game? Normally it's a huge endeavor, but can you extract the characters? Can you extract the storyline? Can you extract the plot? And how would you do it? Now, would you go from book to screenplay, then to the game, or you go straight to the game? Would you be able to do end to end? Can you do book to movie? There's been a few demonstrations of getting sort of clips, but can we actually do an entire movie? You know, go to where the puck's going to be versus where it is now. And then really looking at, can you actually write books? We'll give a demonstration on that. Can you actually write books? Something we've been building. Can you actually write books with AI as a co-writer, not to replace the author. We all have our own imagination and our idiosyncrasies and our flavors we want to put through that might be more difficult to put in an AI. But can we actually, one of the most difficult bits is writer's block. How can you actually accelerate writing things? Can we get 1,000 books out, for example, covering all different niches that people want to look at? And fourthly is the life scientist. Instead of hiring a scientist, hire a machine. And that's under a project we call SuperBio.ai. It's one of our companies. And I think you mentioned the aging vaccine. That's under Agemica. That's under existing companies. What we're thinking of doing at CapAI, we're going to be looking at all the R42 projects. Some of them are already in companies. Some of them are fresh. They're not in companies at all. And we're going to decide which things are appropriate to be in a public listing. We are an operating company, so we're not going to really be buying companies or in that respect. We're going to be basically taking technologies and develop them in the public listing. So we have, really instead of 5% of a company, we really want to take our conviction and work on a few of these projects, each one with tiny teams. We call it tiny teams. It used to be you have to have 100 people to do any one of these things, and it'd take a couple of years. We want to know, can you actually do it with a small, very tiny team, maybe even as little as one person, but probably more a few people to get some things going.
Yeah,
excellent.
And Ronjon, maybe you could just give a 1980s example of tiny teams with your first business.
Oh, right. Yeah. So, because example, my first business, I'm used to tiny teams. My entire career is in small groups. The first company I made, we raised 500 for the company. That's $500, by the way, not $500,000. And we sold it for 12.5 million 20 months later. This is $1993, right? So it's probably about 100 million. So 500 to 100. And can we replicate that? Now it's actually even easier to do it if you choose the right niche. If you choose tough tech where no one can do the work, if you use the tools that are available to you, and you use the markets that start to open up for you as well.
Indeed. What was special about tiny teams?
Yeah, so tiny teams, you get all the expertise in a few people. Certainly it reduces cost, number one. Number two, it increases passion. So, it's by definition, people are not going to sort of work on just the one project unless they're passionate about it. And number three, it gets motivation, compensation through a smaller number of people to be able to actually deliver something. So those are the three dynamics that are working in small groups.
Okay. And let's have a look at this demo then of the book writing. So this is something that I think it's ready to go now, is it? Is it a finished project?
It's not finished yet.
Okay.
It's something we've been working on, but basically, it's really something I invented myself. I want to write a book myself, and then started writing. I need an application to help me write a book, and then all of a sudden it sort of expanded. And this is an example of a tiny team. There's no. This is not 10 people working on it for 9 months. This is really one person. Where I single-handedly can do it with the tools that are available to you. And what is this? This is a book writing helper. And the idea is that you can actually write a book, from beginning to end. So you create an outline and then you write. And it'll generate topics for you to write about based on the sort of field you want to write. And then it will look up the titles to see will the title actually sell, and it'll start helping you write. So let's sort of do a little demonstration. And we're on a news interview, so I thought I'd do this. We'll say how to do news interviews on TV and radio. Why don't we do that? And internet. Okay. And first of all, so you can have it. This is going to be a non-fiction, but you can have fiction as well. This happens to it. We'll just make it informative. We'll keep it as it is. and you can do it from first person, second, but we can keep that blank, how many topics you want, and you just click generate topics, and it will generate a number of topics for you to consider. Here we are.
Okay.
Effective techniques, but no, maybe this will help you. Or no, TV or radio or online. Let's see. Let's do TV. I think we're closer to TV. And off we go. Here we go. It's come up with a outline for TV news, and we can actually let's have a look and see. Each chapter's got a set of sections, and we can actually start editing, just start writing now. But if we're lazy, we can ask it to generate drafts for each of the sections. So they'll take 50 seconds or so. And but we've got the entire chapter outline for you. Maybe these are something you could write yourself. Active listening, ethical considerations, prologue, and then it's got the full sections for each chapter.
So you can go and edit the chapters. You can then write some yourself. You can ask it to get you started on chapters, or even write the whole thing for you.
Yes, it typically is positioned as a co-writer.
Okay.
So still writing imaginations, being able to do this. Eventually, we will actually set up a prize for people to submit books using this, and they can enter in, was it written entirely by AI? Was it half written by AI? And maybe would submit it to judges, and they'd be blinded. Here we are. I've got the first section written. There we go. First section, 1,500 pages, and you can sort of generate it in a little bit clearer.
Okay.
And then if you don't like it, you can edit it and say, this is an intro. Is it to the field?
Okay.
Right. And then you can save it and then go back to it. And then it's still thinking, still generating the other interviews. And then basically you can, the idea is you can sell this. We haven't launched this yet, but the idea is you can sell this as a writing helper.
Okay.
And then get more. The more you write, maybe we charge more. And the more books you write, you charge more. These are just example pricing. And then this will help you. Also, we sort of save what you've written, and then track what you're doing. How many words we haven't saved anything yet, really, but how much words, and to encourage you, and how many minutes you're doing writing, and then you can keep writing books, create a new book, and start again. So that's author 42. And this is just an example of how really, CapAI, we've been spending no money, and yet we've got pretty full thing, where this can actually actually be pretty functional and introduced. So this is one of the projects. It's not a guarantee that we'll introduce it, but this comes from the R42 stable.
Okay.
And then
this is a good example of what the sort of things that R42 work on. And it's nice to see that as well, actually functioning. You say it's not ready to go to market yet, but it's nice to see it's all really there, and you've even got the pricing page as well. I mean, that is important, because ultimately companies, you've got to make money, and particularly on the stock exchange with shareholders, the important thing is how does the idea or the concept or the product, indeed in your case, which is looking like it's developed, how does that translate into revenue growth and growing the company?
Yeah, well, there's two types of projects. One is where you might introduce this. The plenty of AI companies who have zero revenue or negative revenue, and so the value is not on their revenue, is on their intellectual property, on the functionality. And so that will be more our biotech kind of activities, where bio is usually judged on the intellectual property and the progress to creating treatments and drugs rather than the actual revenue, because it takes such a long time. It says, where are you on that journey? And that's how your valuation is. The other type is maybe this kind of thing is, well, how many people are subscribed to writing books? How much revenue is it coming in? And is it on its way? And so that's what we're trying to do. I think in the media, this is just the first step of a media play where there's going to be more and more activity with AI helping generate media, maybe not replacing content creators completely, but accelerating their work, accelerating their imagination.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Okay, excellent. Richard, if I could just come back to you briefly here in terms of, from the corporate side, how CapAI plan to fund the growth, because of course, these things development, they do take money and resources. So what's the plan to fund the growth of CapAI, whilst bearing in mind, of course, dilution of share capital?
Yes, good question. So we're on record saying that the company has no plans to raise capital in the immediate future, where there would be significant dilution for shareholders. So I think we're looking at it sort of at two levels. First sort of level, PLC level, we recently raised in April 275,000, and we've also raised another 190,000 through warrant exercises. Ronjon and I are on performance only remuneration, so we're not drawing a salary. So at PLC level, we've got a very sort of low cost base. We, compared to many other companies, don't need an awful lot of cash to run the PLC at day-to-day level. I think Ronjon's mentioned about the philosophy of tiny teams, that sort of project development level. It needs a different perspective to understand the amount of cash to grow those businesses. If we're looking at tiny teams, a handful of individuals, we're not looking at the traditional model of 50 to 100 members of staff or even more, and all the other overheads that goes with that. So we're in a reasonably healthy cash position, and we are sort of managing the costs at PLC and look to manage the costs at project level to keep everything and run a tight ship.
Excellent. Yeah, so clearly, as you develop the projects, our expectation is, we've gone on record on really managing shareholder dilution extensively, because it's in our interest. We're not being paid a salary. It's only our compensation is through the stock. And so, there may become a time where you have to raise a bit more money for a particular project. But my expectation, that would be a plus, not a minus.
Sure.
It will actually, I'd expect that the market would say, oh, actually, this is the project you're working on. Great. This is the one that's going to generate revenue. Great. Okay, you need a bit of extra. That's fine, but be a plus, not a minus. Yeah. And so that's how we're going to do it. And really, all of these projects, which just showed you this example, it's a bit like raising a puppy, right? Which one do we do? Because then we have to feed it and look after it. And we want one that's going to be a thoroughbred.
Excellent. Excellent. Good. Well, thank you very much, both of you, for your time today. Richard Edwards and, of course, Professor Ronjon Nag, Executive Directors of CapAI.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
If you enjoyed this interview, then give us a thumbs up, a like or a retweet. Subscribe to us on YouTube or follow us on Twitter and hit that notification bell to be the first to know when we release new content. There's loads of great content on our website too, across all our programs at stockboxmedia.com. Thank you for watching.